Welcome to Kinky Knots Cafe, Proactive is the Way, where we provide you tools and resources to enhance your mind, body, and spirit. Get ready, folks. Let us nurture you from the inside out. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. The day had finally arrived. I made a decision to devote my life to Jesus Christ. As I stepped up to the pool, I gazed at my pastor in adoration that he would take time from his pulpit and be the one to baptize me in front of the congregation. I stepped into the water and felt warm and at peace. I waited to him, and he looked at me and asked about my decision to devote my life to Jesus Christ. I began to tell him the story of my desire to find God and how I read a book by Priscilla Schreier, Fervent Prayer. I shared how I created my own war room for prayer, and after 4 months, I felt that God was calling me back home. You see, I left my faith when I got married. My husband was Muslim, and after a year of studying the religion, I shared with him that I was ready to convert to Islam. I wanted our spiritual life to be on the same level, with the same understanding as we navigated life and started to have children. After my studies, I didn't find too many areas that were not aligned, and I thought that since his religion was a part of the Abrahamic religions, we were the same. Our practices, our teachings were pretty similar. Life was good, and then after 8 years of marriage, my husband was deported, and I was forced into a life I never envisioned. I was a married single mom. I didn't want that life for my children or myself, so I decided to move to Senegal, West Africa, only to find out that my husband had moved on. I was devastated. I tried to find a way out of my relationship, and while still married, I fell in love with another man, a man in which I still love until this day. There was no way in which we could be together there, and I started to experience a number of unexplainable illnesses. One night, as I was praying, I heard an audible voice. It said, "Toya, return home. Take care of your children, and all will be well." After my prayer, a couple hours later, my father called. He shared that he would pay for our flights back home. So I returned home and decided that I just needed to strengthen my spiritual life. I couldn't grasp how this could happen to someone who was a devoted Muslim, wife, and a mom. After that experience, I truly wanted to find God. I decided to return back to my roots as a Christian. My pastor, he prayed over me, dedicating my life back to the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and dipped me into the water. This day was the beginning to the end of a life in which I had found comfort and always known. It was the day when two worlds collided as I began a journey into the seen and unseen world. I thought that returning home as a single mom to 3 kids was going to be an enduring experience. No, that was just a precursor to the many, many trials that was about to begin. After my baptism, I became a bit of a religious zealot. I was devoted to sharing with the world the benefits of walking in the life of Jesus Christ. Each day, I would dive deeper into scripture and a multitude of other Christian literature and started writing about my experience, the people I admired, and I was praying for everyone and everything every single day. My family, friends, co-workers, people I met on the street, nature, the earth, everything. I bought and distributed literature to help individuals understand the differences between the Muslim God and Christian God. When I look back on that moment, I can see that I may have been a bit extreme. But my thoughts at that time were, when you are a servant of the Lord, you don't half step in this life. You go all in. I actually keep my Facebook open so that people can learn about my experiences and transition. During my growth, though, something in me changed. I started asking questions about the stories in the Bible, and without having fully read through all of the Bible, I was immediately guided to the exact answer. I kept note cards and would write the question, and when I was answered, I wrote the book, chapter, and verse. I was astonished. I knew something was very different about this experience. Then I started to have many more nudges and whispers, and this intrigued me. I got this grandiose idea to pose more challenging questions, such as, did God leave the Israelites? And if so, did he return? Why do Muslims and Christians serve a different God if they are a part of the Abrahamic religions? I started inquiring about topics that challenged my understanding of the religion and was starting to go in a direction that was not aligned with just being a servant, but more of an investigator. This took me on another turn within my spiritual life, and those whispers and nudges started conflicting. In addition, I felt a change at my church as people I once engaged with seemed distant or no longer were present for mingling after the sermon. At work, every time I would walk into a conference room in which I booked, people were always in my space or made my experience uncomfortable by whispering 13 or 666 and falling silent when I would walk in a room to have a seat. Life started to become very bizarre and uncomfortable. Technological issues and chaos ensued at work. Nonetheless, I was still fervent in prayer and continued to serve the Lord. But it was in this moment, though, I started to experience different energies, whispers that challenged me to open up and see beyond what I understood, asking me to explore areas in which I was taught were forbidden. I started diversifying my teachings and dived into Hinduism, Buddhism, Jehovah's Witness, Wicca, Sikhism, Taoism, Confucianism, Yoruba, and atheism. The whispers and nudges were diversifying too. My spiritual eyes were being opened to a world that I never saw. A world that had I not had a guide or two, I would not be here with you today, but in an insane asylum. So let me pause and take a moment to thank those who understood and respected my desire to truly find God by taking me under their wings and guiding me on a path to develop the art of discernment. Discernment, the ability to judge well, analyzing the facts within a given situation and coming to a logical conclusion to make a decision. An art of judgment that is not designed to condemn, but to encourage improvement or change. For those who are just joining us, this year we are focusing on principles that we believe are critical to navigating life and creating the best version of ourselves for a particular moment within time. Our featured book for the year is Principles by Ray Dalio. In Principles, Ray highlights that it is important that we learn how to make decisions effectively. In order to make decisions effectively, we must first possess the ability to learn and then decide. He shared that our brain stores different types of learning in our subconscious, our rote memory bank, and habits. But no matter how we acquire our knowledge or where we store it, what's most important is that what we know paints a true and rich picture of the realities that will affect our decision. So, how do we become effective at analyzing information and come to a logical conclusion to make sound decisions? Let's begin by better understanding the source of information in which we acquire and our predispositions when making a decision. These predispositions are usually influenced by our upbringing and culture, which includes our spiritual ideologies, socioeconomic status, and our community. Ray does an amazing job of laying down all of the considerations we must take into account when making effective decisions. What he shares is tangible and can be effectively analyzed leveraging scientific-based models and applications to weight its viability and authenticate its effectiveness. However, I want to examine a consideration that we often neglect due to our inability to scientifically authenticate its existence. Nonetheless, since the creation of man, it has always been our natural capability, a natural characteristic of man in which we fail to study and cultivate for better understanding and functionality of its use. I am referencing what has now been dubbed as supernatural, our intuition, our ability to communicate telepathically, and foresight. So, let's define these three attributes of our natural capabilities. Intuition is the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. Telepathy, which is the communication of thoughts or ideas by means other than the known senses, and the byproduct of telepathy is mind reading, which is when a person can discern when another person is thinking. Another byproduct is mind control, the ability to influence or manipulate someone's thoughts, emotions, or behaviors without their consent. And foresight. Foresight refers to the ability to predict or anticipate future events or outcomes based on present information or past experiences. It involves strategic thinking, planning, and analysis to make informed decisions that can help navigate or prepare for potential future scenarios. While it's valuable, it's important to note that foresight doesn't guarantee absolute accuracy in predicting the future, as many unpredictable variables can influence events. I share the information above because after I was baptized, an interesting event occurred where I was able to hear and see beyond the seen world. I used to say, I don't see, my spirit sees. I started being able to piece together signs and events occurring within the world in a manner that helped me to decipher and solve the intricacies of messages being communicated, and my ability to communicate telepathically was strengthened. It was during this time that I realized that we have the capability to not only speak to each other telepathically, but we could also read and control minds. To learn more about these natural capabilities that we possess, let's take a listen to a clip of a 60-minute episode on a scientific study that was conducted at MIT about technologies that emulate man's natural capabilities to communicate telepathically. Technologies that are being created to emulate telepathy and its byproduct, mind reading. It's titled, MIT's Mind Reading Wearable Lets You Silently Interact with All of Your Devices. Let's take a listen.
What is 45,689 divided by 67?
Sure.
He silently asks the computer and then hears the answer through vibrations transmitted through his skull and into his inner ear.
6, 8, 1.9, 2, 5.
Exactly right. One more. What's the largest city in Bulgaria, and what is the population? The screen shows how long it takes the computer to read the words that he's saying to himself.
Sofia, 1.21 million.
That is correct. You just Googled that.
I did.
You could be an expert in any subject.
Mm-hmm.
You had the entire internet in your head.
That's the idea.
There is another TED Talk that goes further in depth regarding these technologies, created to emulate man's natural capabilities to communicate telepathically, and the ethics behind the use of these technologies that are being created to help governments and militaries conduct exercises using this technology. It's a TED Talk out of Switzerland titled How Mind Reading Technology Conquers Your Brain. It can be found on YouTube, and I will include the link in the description for your review. When I started on my Christian journey, I sought for a resource that could help me to better understand the whispers and nudgings in which I kept experiencing. I was able to find the guidance in which I sought and solace in knowing that I was not alone in trying to interpret this newfound experience in which I encountered. In an effort to learn how to make effective decisions leveraging our natural capabilities, I found within Christian literature techniques in which we can leverage to become better at understanding these whispers that can influence our decision making. Today, we will learn more about these whispers by reviewing Discerning the Voice of God by Priscilla Schreier, and I'll highlight some techniques from The Power of a Whisper by Bill Hybels, founder and lead pastor at Willow Creek Church in Barrington, Illinois. Priscilla leads Going Beyond Ministries, through which her and her husband provides spiritual support and resources to learn more about Christ via their conferences and through her books and Bible studies program. She is a wonderful teacher and wrote and teaches extensively on how to discern the voice of God. While this will be heavily focused on Christian doctrine, the techniques provided can be applied no matter your religious, spiritual, or non-spiritual beliefs. Keep that in mind as you read and stay focused on the message. Try not to focus so much on who is delivering the message that you miss the message. Along the way, I will guide you on how to leverage discernment to help you stay focused and find value in the message and techniques provided, so that we all can become better at communicating telepathically, receiving messages, analyzing them, coming to a logical conclusion, and the application thereof by using our natural capabilities. So, let's develop some context. Each one of us is attuned to a frequency to the unique voice of God. Whether you define God as the creator and ruler of the universe and source of all moral authority, aka the supreme being, or you define God as a human being with supernatural capabilities, a being that has power over nature or human fortunes. No matter how you define God, we are all dialed into a particular frequency. Even an atheist is dialed into a particular frequency. And in actuality, if you leverage the second definition of God, atheism does not exist. Let me explain. As I learned more about the notion of God, I came to the conclusion that we are all a part of a community and serve as a guide to each other. I realize that God is not necessarily a supreme being, but the meaning of God is actually an acronym for Guides of Destiny. And each one of us possesses a natural capability and energy designed to support ourselves and others throughout our journey through life. I learned that my relationship with God is more personal and directly impacts the decisions that I make in life. Defining God in this manner allowed me to finally be able to assign accountability, as I am now aware of those who are in support and do not truly support me. I no longer seek for justification or justice from an inanimate source. I am directly aligned with the source. God is energy. And as Father Steve Bevins so eloquently stated, sometimes we imagine God as a person, like us, but a lot older, a lot wiser, somehow up there or out there and kind of directing things. I've moved away from understanding God in that way. God is movement. God is an embrace. God is flowing through the world. The relationship of God moving the world is more personal than we can ever imagine. I am fully aligned with Father Stephen Bevins in that God, he, she, it is energy. God is you. God is me. I am her, and she is I. It is I, and I am it. God is plurality. God is male, female, nature, and the energy of our ancestors. Due to this understanding, we are stewards of one another. And in that, each one of us has a great responsibility that should not be taken lightly or done haphazardly. As a result of my newfound belief and full understanding of God, I took a position to accept and embrace all communities and leaned on the side of tolerance of everyone's cultural influences and life choices. As such, I no longer demonize whispers or guidance that is not a part of my belief system, but I embrace the guidance that come from many different people, ethnic groups, cultures, and even my ancestors. Living in this state is extremely challenging, as every day I must attune my ear to the messages that come from all walks of life, categorizing and time-stamping these whispers into what is directed for me, someone else, or to be leveraged in the future. In order to do this well, it was very important that I learn the art of listening. This is the first technique highlighted in Priscilla's book, Discerning the Voice of God. Keep in mind, Priscilla's belief is aligned with the first definition of God. Priscilla shares that it is important to create time, space, and opportunity to hear God, and it is paramount for those who desire to sense God's Spirit's conviction, to receive God's detailed guidance, and to discern God's intimate leading. It is important that you find a quiet space and remove and refrain from all distractions. In addition, it is critical that you leverage the Word within your spiritual practice. In my day-to-day, this means taking time within my day to devote to speaking to and listening to God, my guides of destiny. I generally use my workout time to get into a meditative state, as my workout always concludes with setting an intention and a yogic practice to calm and heal my body, mind, and spirit to prepare for the day. In addition, I leverage a multitude of literature, secular and non-secular readings, articles, and yes, folks, even social media to receive messages. If used strategically, this is another viable resource. Under the Christian faith, the Bible serves as their living guide. If you want to be able to receive the whispers and discern how the nudges and whispers are guiding you, you must read the Bible. However, if you choose to pursue the route of being more open-minded and fluid, living in this manner takes serious practice and devotion. You see, I am not aligned to one faith or group of people. I have chosen to align with everyone, so my ability to discern must be thoughtful, organized, and I must be strong and content with what I know and believe about myself. Which leads me to the next technique in which she highlights as it relates to understanding the desires of your heart, or as Bill Hybels suggests, being aligned with your character. Priscilla shares that God will help structure your desires to help you do what pleases Him. He will change your desires to fit His will. Under a Christian context, this is how their community is designed. It is critical that for God to work effectively through you, that you study the Bible and spend time alone with God so that you can be guided. When I served as a Christian, I will say that this was one of the most reassuring and peaceful attributes of the faith. My community, when fully aligned, would be there for me, guiding me on my path. But choose your community well, as this can be impacted by your race, gender, and class. Nonetheless, you will be protected and nurtured. And even if you get off track, they are there walking alongside you and guiding you back to the Word. When I decided to embrace guidance that fell outside of my Christian faith and accept knowledge and guidance from a multitude of sources, I must say I felt a bit liberated. I was able to live out my truest desires and permitted to digest the knowledge of the world without feeling like I needed to conform to a certain way or possess certain mannerisms aligned to a structural religious system. While I made this decision, I believe my Christian and prior to that my Muslim communities were disappointed in me. Nonetheless, I sensed that they understood that my intentions were pure, and I was elated that over time my Christian and Muslim community learned to accept my choices, and when needed, still to this day provides me the guidance I desire or need. Once again, if you choose a path such as this, it takes a great deal of practice and understanding of yourself. You must spend enough time getting to know who you are. What are your likes and dislikes? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What health ailments or dispositions do you possess? What is your educational background, your expertise and experience within life? It is critical. I repeat, critical, that you spend time in self-reflection, understanding yourself and your truest desires. Because if you decide to take a broader perspective to embracing the knowledge and guidance of the world, you must understand yourself enough to know if the whispers and nudges you experience are aligned with who you are. In this space, you can and will be led astray. It is a much more difficult terrain to navigate because you have guides that want you to succeed and guides who will lead you down a very wrong path. This is one of the reasons that Christians strongly encourage you to leverage the Bible and practice the faith wholeheartedly. It is why they strongly believe that if there is any guidance that goes against the Word and is unaligned with the Christian belief system, it is labeled as satanic and demonized. Due to my understanding of the world and its design, I found it a bit disheartening that people who fell outside of a structured religion did not have a guide or resource to assist them. Although you can still leverage the Bible, the Quran, the sutras, etc., I find that an alignment must be present to possess a full experience under that respective discipline. This is one of the reasons why I truly appreciate the Dalai Lama's efforts to create a program targeted to our younger population to enhance social, emotional, and ethical learning, which takes a secular approach to helping individuals develop sound morals and values and assist them to improve their overall emotional intelligence as they navigate life and manage people. While this is geared towards children, I personally believe that adults need a guide too. So I started to write a book titled Guides of Destiny, a guide for the guide. You can find the beginnings of this book on Wattpad, Wattpad. Now that I have a little more experience under my belt, I will be resuming and completing that book soon. So this leads me to the final technique in which I will discuss today, your network, your guides and overall community. Once you determine how you plan to live your life, get ready. Make sure that your foundation is set, because your senses will become heightened and attuned to the whispers of your community. In Priscilla's book, she shares that you will know that God is speaking to you because He will be persistent as He highlights His desires for you via the Word, your life circumstances, and communicating through others. When these three coincide, you will know what is God's desire for you. As Priscilla shares, the Holy Spirit is at work in your heart, in the hearts of others, and in the events of your own life to point you in God's direction. All of these things and more represent God's unrelenting attempts to speak to you and cause you to listen. If you are ever unsure, stand still until you are sure. This is true no matter which community you decide to align to or if you take a broader approach. It is helpful that you commune with others to understand if the messages you are receiving will help you fulfill your endeavors or will take you off of your path. In the secular space, this looks more like developing a network of people within the area in which you are interested in to attain further insight. You want to engage a body or community of people who are well versed in the area in which you want to pursue. Once you are in alignment, you will start to be directed or encounter additional resources to support you along your journey. Therefore, pay attention to the guidance provided, the resources that you encounter, and make sure it is aligned with who you are, your endeavor, and desired outcome. If you are someone who tends to leverage their intuition or gifts of foresight, please note that these natural capabilities do possess a level of unpredictability due to external factors that come into play. The steps provided above will help you to minimize or eliminate confusion, inconsistencies, and confirmation bias, which is the tendency to interpret new evidence as confirmation of one's existing beliefs or theories. One point to note is that there are many communities that exist, secular and non-secular. These communities leverage their gifts of foresight to identify talent. When these communities identify an individual that possesses a certain talent, you will be pursued like a star recruit. It occurs within numerous spaces, and there will be a desire for you to align with a particular community so that you will be provided the guidance, the resources, and be challenged within your network. This is desired as it will help you to hone in on your talent and find further success, or within certain religious spaces, groomed to promote their cause or initiatives. For those who are younger, this may be a lot to manage and a bit confusing. It will be one of the most challenging times within your life, especially if you were not a part of a community, or if you are, but another community desires your skill set, your talent. This is why I strongly encourage you to set your foundation first and leverage the techniques provided to help you judge well and make effective decisions within your life. So let's take a moment to recap some of the techniques provided today. Technique 1, the art of listening. Develop a practice that will help you to focus and be able to listen most effectively to the messages that are being communicated. Whether it is via the Holy Spirit or leveraging telepathy, it is one of the most important strategies in which you can implement to have an effective spirit-led or guided life. I strongly encourage you to practice every day. Everyday practice will help you become exceptionally skilled at listening well. Technique number 2. Reading is essential. You will need to practice and build a habit of reading. The words will speak to you. If reading is not your thing, there is a quote that I love that helped me. Read what you love until you love to read. I started with articles, then I started taking a more structured approach, leveraging social media by connecting with resources who were more skilled in an area in which I am or was interested. I built a network of people and resources within that area. Then I dialed into others who love to read to better understand how did they develop the desire to read and find the time. Finally, I found my way. I prefer to read in the mornings in bed or while exercising. And while it's quite expensive, I buy the audiobook and the book to read along and take notes. This has helped to improve my speed and be able to take notes more effectively for better comprehension and retention. Technique number 3. Self-awareness. Develop a high level of self-awareness. Set your foundation by conducting a great deal of self-reflection and outlining your principles. To learn more about developing principles and self-awareness, I recommend that you check out Proactive is the Way in Season 1, Episodes 7 and 8, titled I Got Standards, and Episode 13 and 14, titled In My Feelings. This is critical for developing the art of discernment. It also serves as a form of discipline to help you know where you stand, so that when you are engaged, you will be able to leverage your principles to make a decision in which you can live with and not be led astray. Make sure that the guidance you encountered is aligned with who you are and believe within yourself. Now, you may be challenged because with challenge comes exponential growth. I encourage you to pursue the challenge if you feel a conviction within your spirit and truly believe that you possess enough competency, experience, expertise, and the transferable skills required to find success. Technique number 4. Build your network. If you desire to pursue a particular endeavor or need guidance, it is important to build your network or community. To learn how to do this most effectively, I welcome you to listen to our series on networking and building a guiding team. You can find this episode in Season 1, Episode 23 and 24. Do not skip this step. If the thought of networking frightens you, lucky for you, social media or networking has made this process less invasive and easier to navigate, as networking chains are more informal and accessible. Please note that there are many communities that exist and desire to help you. These communities are in secular and non-secular spaces, and some even overlap. As previously shared, they will leverage their gifts of foresight, intuition, and telepathy to identify if you possess the competency to fill a role, or if your raw talent will be an asset within their community. It will be critical for your foundation to be set so that you do not succumb while going through their process to evaluate you. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed our conversations today. What I shared today was just a few of the techniques highlighted within Priscilla and Bill's book. These techniques can be applied across the secular and non-secular spaces. However, if you are a Christian believer or interested in the Christian faith, each author goes further into detail with regards to how to better understand the whispers and the application thereof. And I strongly encourage that if you want to get better at this skill, to pick up a copy of both books. You can find them on the KK Cafe approved book list. Join us in 2 weeks as we continue our discussions on the Art of Discernment as Tiffany joins us to discuss the techniques she uses to judge well. We will also share some tips and concepts to consider from others to develop your artistry in discernment. We look forward to you joining us. In preparation for our discussions, please make sure to pick up a copy of Discerning the Voice of God by Priscilla Schreier and The Power of a Whisper by Bill Hybels. To access all replays or learn more about Kinky Knots Cafe's Proactive is the Way, please visit www.kinkyknotscafe.com. Proactive is the way, my friends. Take good care.